Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening, wherever you are in the world. As ever, I'm Jay Acharya, the CEO of Aspire Consulting and Training Limited, and this is the Becoming the Leader in You podcast. Every episode, we explore real leadership, stories, successes, challenges, and also some of the lessons behind them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and you can also listen to us on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and more. My guest today is an award-winning learning and development consultant who's helped shape leaders at organizations such as Muller and the Citizens Advice Bureau. She's also designed practical leadership programs that actually make sense in the real world, which help put her ahead of half the managers that have worked. From first-line managers to ILM Level 5 leadership programs, her passion is for helping people become better leaders without needing a 94-page slide PowerPoint or a trust fall exercise. But I'd like to welcome Helen Bailey, an L&D Supremo. Helen, welcome to the Becoming the Leader in You podcast.
Thank you. Do you know what? You've summed it up so beautifully that I don't always articulate as well myself. So thank you for that.
No, you're most welcome.
94 pages of slides. Who needs that? Oh.
Those
days. Well, yeah. Do you know what? I can remember having trainer notes when I first started many, many years ago. And it used to say at the bottom, do not let them turn the page of the workbook.
Yeah.
I mean, what was going to happen? Really? And I just think, this is what we're going to call, Taylor Swift might call her informal era. That's where I am now.
No, absolutely. I don't know if you're like me, but when I do use PowerPoints, I just use them as aid memoirs. So they're literally just there and I go off on one.
Yeah. I'll just go for a wander. And then I'll go, oh, yeah. And now we're back in the room.
Yeah, no, exactly. Helen, thank you again so much for your time. And for anyone that doesn't know, this is actually being recorded at the end of May. So it's the 26th of May today in the UK. And we've got bizarrely hot weather. I mean, it's
the hottest day ever. That's all I'm going to say.
It's about 32 degrees at the moment. And we're both in the Midlands. Midlands-ish. I shouldn't say it for you, Helen, because you're north of the Midlands.
Can we just say you've opened up a massive debate because I have a whole thing about whether Stoke is in the Midlands or not. I guess people can write that in the comments because I'm not sure because I'm from Manchester originally. So that is proper north. This is who knows.
Whenever I watch my local news on BBC and they talk about the Midlands, Stoke is in there. So that's the only reason why I say it. But, I apologise to anyone from Stoke and the surrounding areas if I've sort of included you in the most wonderful part of the world, which is the West Midlands. Another debate coming up. But, Helen.
Moving on.
Absolutely. As ever, Helen, this is called the Becoming the Leader in You podcast. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to know what that means to you about becoming the leader in yourself.
These are so interesting questions. I just want to say that first of all, because I think quite often I'm not asked enough thought-provoking questions, and I don't mean that generally. I just think these have just really made me think, and I think I've kind of thought about a few things here. And I think the first is I'm a massive fan of the High Performance podcast. Sorry to name something else on here.
No.
But Ellie Simmons was on the High Performance podcast, and she talked about becoming the best you can be and using all your potential. And I think there is something in that. Am I really stretching myself a little bit? Because I think people don't. I think it's very comfortable. You know what L&D is like. We love a questionnaire. We love to put people in a box and all the rest of it. And then people go, yeah, but that's just me. That's who I am. No. You know, all that. You can dial things up and dial things down. And I think your ability to do that. And I think the other thing that's important is context. Using the right style in the right context, I think, is the other thing. And I think, and I also think about, I'm a massive Man United fan, so that's probably a lot of people have just switched off at this point, which is fine. But I always think
that's me.
yeah. I'm sorry. But I always think about Sir Alex Ferguson and his way of managing. He couldn't do that now.
No, you're right.
Actually, just in terms of, you wouldn't be able to kick a boot at David Beckham. You probably wouldn't be able to shout some of the things he did now.
Exactly.
And I think understanding the context, and I think the other thing that sits within this is being curious to me. I think you can learn something from everything.
Mm.
You have to keep your mind open to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I listened to another podcast, which is Comfort Eating by Grace Dent, and it is not about learning. It's about what do people eat late at night as a kind of comfort food. And I think in those conversations, there are some really interesting things that I've kind of gone, oh yeah, you know, and I've started to inform.
It's funny because when you are talking about the Alex Ferguson leadership sort of styles, I remember going back 20 plus years, and I would ask the question, okay, let's talk about someone that inspires you as a leader. And
Oh,
it's
he'd be
amazing
up there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but he would always be on there, you know, alongside Jesus, God, Mahatma Gandhi. You think,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
he's in all the, and it says a lot about styles as well, because when we go back, however many years, people talk about leaders from wars hundreds and thousands of years ago, and they say, you know, they had this element or this style about them that persuaded individuals to follow them. And it's that word persuaded and or influenced. And one has to question, you know, was it persuasion or was it a push or bullying or whatever? And you're right, those styles can't be used today. But when we go to when I go to different countries, it's amazing how many times I see that dictatorial style still being used effectively, unfortunately, but still creating an environment where people are now scared of their managers and they follow their lead and think that's how I need to be. And it's scary because a lot of these companies are westernized companies or corporations that have found regions in Southeast Asia to operate, and they're using those tactics or processes or ways of managing or leading people. And it's scary, and that's our responsibility to go in and say, okay, let's change the process, let's change and adopt new ways of operating.
Let's think about the impact of that. And I think one of my first, you know, I think the other thing, and I know you're going to ask me about where you learn, and but one of my first management experiences, it was I used to work in a supermarket. I used to be a checkout manager many years ago before I found the wonders of L&D, and that was a store that was run on fear. I've never forgotten it. And the impacts of that was we were a pretty tight store. We were a really good store when he was there. The minute he went on holiday, it would just all fall apart because we were just like, and you know, and we would just like take a break from that. And I always talk about, you know, fear is very short term. You know, you'll probably get results. You've probably got a high turnover, I would suggest, if you've got fear, because people don't feel that they can express themselves, and people are actually probably suppressing all that emotional energy, which then stops them doing their best work.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point about sort of having fear as a leadership trait. And when I talk about my Asian clients, my African country-based clients, you see that. And it's trying to go in and break that down, breaking that mold, and getting them to realize, how do I work with the people that I've got so that I can include them in decisions, help them develop, help them grow, and help them achieve. And I think there's something around intimidation as well. A lot of managers or leaders are intimidated by the successes that their teams might be having. And if their senior managers see that Jay, for example, is doing better than Helen, the question is going to be, why isn't he now promoted? And one should be saying, you know, how can I help my teams improve and become better than me? And I think that's
so,
really important.
Yeah, you should have somebody following up. And I think the other thing I think that's really interesting is the rise of, and I guess they were always around, but these narcissistic bosses, that seems to be, you know, that seems to be a sort of trend that people are talking about more and more.
Absolutely.
And you know, that struggle when organizations are built around this one person, and that person usually operates as a force of nature. That's the best way to describe them.
Yeah,
you can, you know, they kind of breeze into a room, and you know, there's lots of action, you know, when they're doing that, but also that kind of twisting of, you know, if the team succeeds, then they don't succeed, they succeed. I remember somebody was saying to me, that wasn't bad, Helen, for you.
Wow.
And I was like, I've never forgotten that. I still, it's about was it 25 years later, I always talk about that. you know, or you wouldn't have done that if it hadn't been for me.
Wow. And how did that make you feel at that time?
Do you know, at the time it was pretty awful, and
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have taken it now if I'm really honest. I do think
Uh-huh.
there's something about, as you get slightly older,
Yeah.
you're 25, no, but as you get a little bit older, you do kind of go to the, you know, you're kind of more confident in yourself about what you'll
Of
tolerate, what you
course.
won't tolerate.
Yeah.
And I think I would have responded differently now. I think
Yeah.
I would have had more confidence in my own ability. And I think at the time I was just like, okay, you know, and just like, all right.
That's a win. Yay.
yeah. Well, I did it. yeah.
Let me ask you another question then, Helen. We've spoken about some leaders out there and the type of leaders that there are. But my next question is about the person that shaped you to become who you are today, whether it's positive or even, you know, I don't like using the word negative, but someone that might have had those challenging traits.
Ooh. I think
And you don't need to name names.
No, I'm not going to name names because, you know, legal implications and stuff like that is probably. I think let's start with the positive, because I think I work well. Actually, they're both from the same organisation, which is kind of weird. So we've got the positive, who was my manager, who kind of empowered me and said, I don't really care how you do it, what you do, just do it.
Yeah.
And I had a massive free scope to kind of do what I thought was right. And I am the sort of person who does regular check-ins and all that kind of thing. But it was just so empowering to know that there was absolute trust, and that was from day one.
Wow. But I suppose that comes down to the recruitment process as well, knowing that they recruited a person that they can trust. I'd be right in thinking
absolutely.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. Loads of experience. It was much later in my career. Loads of experience, could be trusted to do the job. Yeah, it was just amazing. I think that was probably the best. And I think that trust is such an important element.
Yeah.
I think if people don't trust you, that can be. And then conversely, in the same organisation, somebody who I had to work with extensively didn't trust me. And that was kind of a very difficult a contradiction for me to manage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a key stakeholder I had to work with, and then somebody would be going, but you didn't copy me in on that. I don't need to copy in on that.
Yeah. So where's the shaping in that? I'm understanding that the person that gave you the freedom, you understood where that was coming from, but then the person that sort of had that almost authoritarian approach to something, or is it was it something else?
Do you know what? I think it might be an L&D thing, and the reason I say this, I think I've got lots of thoughts about L&D and where it is and where it's going, and I think everybody thinks they're an expert in L&D. I do. I think everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's going to give you some feedback. Everyone has thoughts about something amazing they've seen and they want to see you replicate here, but it might not be the right thing to do. And I think it was somebody who'd seen something somebody somewhere else had thought that's going to work here, but wasn't going to in the context. Definitely wasn't the budget to kind of explore that. I think L&D suffers from an overload of feedback, I feel.
I think you're right. You know, the moment you have this manager hat on, or a team leader hat on, or a director's hat on, you are the font of all knowledge when it comes to people growth and people development.
Absolutely.
And the reality is, actually, you've been on a couple of courses and now you think you know everything. And that's when I think you used that word narcissistic earlier on. That's when that narcissist comes out saying, you know, look at me, this is how you should be doing it. When the reality is, look at me and be better.
Yes. But do you know, but I think what and this is kind of going slightly off topic, but I think what's happened, there has been a rise in people who are very charismatic, particularly in the L&D world, who can stand in the front and be amazing. I absolutely get that, but he's so much more than that. And I think it's kind of like, I really want to have a chat. I really want to have a discussion. I know stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm actually quite interested in what other people have got to say. And I had a group last week actually, and it was really, they asked me a really interesting question, and I was like, that's kind of stopped me in my tracks. But
Yeah.
I love that. That is what I kind of crave, rather than me 94 slides we were joking about
Yeah,
before. Yeah.
exactly. It's that trust fall as well. Oh my God, when was the last time you did a trust fall? A few weeks.
Never done a trustful, Jay.
Oh, right, okay. I
No.
did, and it was an experience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Coming back to having that person standing on stage
Mm.
and talking to, I did something. I was going to say a few weeks, but it's actually a few months ago, and I was doing a keynote speech. And I love keynotes when I've got a group of people in front of me, and I love being on stage because all eyes are on me. It's my ego, and I genuinely that's what gets me into what L&D is all about. And it's about conversation. And I ruined it for the organizers, because as I was doing my keynote, I went off kilter, and I just started doing I sat on the edge of the stage and I started talking to everybody. And we ended up having this conversation. I was only meant to be there for 30 minutes, and we did a 90-minute set. And I had to get them to run around the audience with their microphones, all because I wanted to be intimate as a conversation and give people an opportunity to have their questions asked. And it was amazing, because once it had finished, it was almost like you weren't there for a keynote speech. You were there to listen to us, listen to our questions. And we got more out of this in the 90 minutes than we would have in a whole week of training. And
absolutely. And that's where the magic spot is, isn't it? It's not about the models and all the rest of it, is it? I think I rolled my eyes, didn't I, when I did that? But it's not about that. It is about the conversation that we have.
Exactly. And that makes so. One of the beliefs I have as a leader, and I do call myself a leader because of the positions I find myself in and the people I work with and the influence that I give. I have a lot of things that I believe are right in the way that they're done. However, I'll get people challenging. So thinking about something that you have a high belief in, what would that be that other people would disagree with?
Or many things, I would imagine, probably Man United being the first one.
Who? Sorry, who?
I know.
Is that a cricket team?
Yeah, no. We're very excited about ourselves because we've managed to get back in the Champions League. I think that's as much as we're going to manage. Right. What is my that people often would disagree with? I thought about this, I thought about a lot of things actually. I think my first one is about kindness being a key component. I think people don't often see challenge as kindness, but I think it is. I think I spend a lot of my time talking about confident conversations, courageous conversations, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because, people really struggle to have those conversations. And I think they think they're being kind by not having those conversations, but they're not.
It's that protective sort of system, isn't it?
Yeah. You need to challenge, and there's a really great example from F1. So I only know about 3 things. I've got to be really honest. L&D, obviously. I know about F1. I know about football, and I know about Strictly. Everything else is off the table as far as I'm concerned. I haven't got the headspace.
Those are your mastermind topics.
Yeah, those are my mastermind topics. That's all I can give you. But Omar Snats, I can never say his name because it's really bad. Snats. Anyway, he used to be the team principal of Alpine, and he talked about leading with kindness. And he essentially got the sack for it because that's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
The board really struggled with him leading with kindness. So if something had gone wrong, he would kind of do the, what do you think we should do? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the board were like, no, just tell him.
Yeah.
And they have a team principal at the moment called Flavio Briatore, who is very more direct. If you watch Drive to Survive and watch him on there, he is like, I own you now. You do exactly as I tell you to do, which I think is...
it's finding that balance, though, isn't it? I think this is where people struggle. This is where leaders of organizations do struggle, because that fine balance that one has, it's kind of like, okay, I need to be direct with you. I need to be assertive with you. But at the same time, I want you to realize that you're still part of my team. And I want you to make these decisions. I want you, or rather, I need you to make these decisions. I need you to make these unpleasant decisions. I can't keep telling you what to do because you need to own it. And
also, as a leader, you don't have time to keep telling people what to do. I've got to be really honest. One of my frustrations is always about people who say, but they have to come to me. No, they don't.
Yeah.
And how much time is that eating up? Also, I want to compliment you on using the "I need you to" because I think that is really important.
Thank you.
If you say "I want," it sounds it's all about me. I need you to has that emotional pull, and I really like the emotion of I need you to, as opposed to I want you to. Just sounds
I'll give you a reason why I use that, and I do use it in all of my conversations with my clients and when I'm doing training. My wife once said to me, "Darling, I know you want an Aston Martin, but do you need it?"
No, not at the moment. You don't know.
Exactly. But with the sun out and with the roof down, it's kind of, I do need it now. But it's that stage where I think, and this is where, as a consultant, our responsibility is to speak to our clients and have those conversations. Say, okay, I know what you want to do, but what's the reality behind it? What do you actually need within your organization, within your company, within your teams? I know you want to reduce costs, but do you need to reduce it in the way that you're saying, by making people redundant? And it's raising the sort of conversation. And I think it's that challenge that we were talking about, allowing people to be more curious, but also step outside of that comfort zone and ask those questions so that people feel empowered and take them down a different route.
I think my first question is always, how do you know that? I think I'm very big in the data. I'm very analytic. That's my kind of headspace. How do you know that? And I think I often use that in conversations with people, because quite often when we talk about difficult conversations, we're going to have to find a different word for it, because I'm very not difficult at all. But I think, I always say, when people say, I think, I feel, how do you know that? What's your evidence for that?
Yeah.
Because there probably isn't any. It's just a feeling, or and sometimes I use that for myself. If I come away from a session or a conversation, I think, oh, that didn't go as well as I thought it did. What is my evidence for that? I will always come back to that.
I'm like you in that respect, because I will ask those questions. Where's the evidence to show that this is what you want? And I used to watch this TV show, a hospital show called New Amsterdam. And in there,
I've heard of it.
So the medical director, he would go to each of the departments and say, how can I help? And he would talk about all the challenges that they're facing, but say, how can I help you? And I've been doing that for years. I've been in this game for 37 odd years now, and I always ask that question to my clients. So we've discussed all of this. Now that you know what I do and what I offer, how can I help you? And it's amazing how they're sort of going, oh, you're meant to tell me how you're going to help me. And it sort of twists it or flips it.
Yeah, it switches the conversation. And I think also there is a value in knowing what you can do and what you can't do. And I think a lot of consultants don't have the courage to walk away sometimes when it's not something that either sits with your values or sits uncomfortably with you for some reason. And I think you have to know when to go as well. I think you have to know, do you know what, I'm not the person for this, but I do know somebody who can do it, and share the love a little bit. I think sometimes we can be a bit
right.
Lord of the Rings and Gollum going, precious. We can be a little bit in that space. Yeah.
Of course. I have to admit, I do step away from a lot of clients. But when I say I step away, I know that they're going to be in touch with me in the next 2 to 3 months, because the client that they, or rather the business that they did go to, didn't deliver what they wanted to. And it's knowing that they will be coming back. And there's an element of positive arrogance as well in knowing that they will be coming back. And whenever I leave a conversation saying, okay, this isn't for me, but I'll speak to you in a couple of months, that speaking to them in a couple of months is, Jay, do you know when you said about this, this and this, how can we do it? And it's kind of,
do you know, I really like the phrase positive arrogance. Can I just say I'm going to have that, I think.
No. It's trademarked.
Is it that? I'll let you have the. But I just think there is something about confidence, isn't there? And something about, look, this is what I do. I know I do it really well. That what you're asking for. That's not. I ever think about team building. If anybody asks me to do any team building, I go, it makes me feel all inside. Because I just think, because quite often my conversations around it, what do you want to do? You want to have whatever, we want the team to have a nice time. Go bowling,
Yeah.
do something else. Don't involve me. If you want to have a nice time, you can do that
Yeah.
without me.
Well, this is it. I need to be worth my while in that situation. That you're investing in me for the right reasons. Helen, we've got a couple of questions, and we've got about 7 minutes left. So, quick, short answer for this one.
Okay.
When the pressure gets the highest for you, who do you become as Helen Bailey?
Well, I think we've got a good side and a bad side, because I think it is. I think
both.
Okay. On my good side, I can cut through the noise really easily.
Excellent.
I have that. I think it's the analytical mindset. I can just cut through the rubbish and go straight to it and find out what's at the heart, and I'll be really direct about it. I think on the bad side of it, that could be too blunt for people. I've got to be real, that can almost be people go, whoa, hang on a minute. Just tell me what it is. Yeah, let's just do it. And it kind of doesn't sit as with my sort of, I don't know what you want to call my personality. But I think then also I can try and take all the responsibility on and try and flex all of my muscles to try and get everything done rather than, and get focused in activity rather than thinking about it properly.
Right.
Yeah. And that's painful. For me and the client, because sometimes it's not what they wanted, and it was more I just needed to get something out there.
And I think we forget that we work by ourselves, don't we? So sometimes we don't have that person to bounce off, or someone to say to us, you've gone a bit too heavy on that, or you're a bit too light on it. And you think, let me give everything because that's what my client needs. And we forget that. Have we had that conversation with them, or, and am I pushing too hard? So no, I appreciate that honesty as well. And that does create different types of pressures. My final question for today, Helen, is about, I just mentioned that we do work on our own. So we do need to have conversations to ourselves every so often.
We do.
What's one honest conversation that you've been avoiding?
I think it's a conversation with myself. It's a conversation about boundaries. I am terrible for eating into the weekends, eating into the evenings. It's one of my worst traits. I think it's kind of linked to, I'm not really a 9 to 5 kind of girl. I've never understood that. And I do like an afternoon nap, which also doesn't really lend itself to having what I'm going to call a proper job. But I think I've definitely felt those boundaries slipping in the last few weeks. And I think, I need to go outside and have a good word with myself about why that has been, and whether I want to continue with that, because it hasn't served me well. And what was really interesting was I'd kind of broken all the boundaries and then managed to get flu. And I think that's not a coincidence, is it? Let's be honest.
No, you're right. And I think, again, if you're running your own business, sometimes you do realize that you're working for your clients, not for yourself all the time. And like you, I work 7 days a week. My day starts at 3:30 in the morning every single day, and it's challenging. It goes through till about 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm fortunate I do have a nap in the afternoon, but it's because I've got clients all over. And they do work 7 days a week. I say they do, they don't, I do, to meet their needs. But it's about having that honest conversation. At what point are you going to step away and say, I'm on holiday this week, guys, you can't contact me? However, when I go on holiday, I've got my MacBook, I've got my iPad, I've got everything ready. Kind of, okay, kids, give me 10 minutes. I've just got to do all this. And you're never switched off.
I think even if you're not, I try to be really good about holidays, mainly because my husband's taking time off work, so it feels a bit bad if I suddenly start, doing a load of work. But I think it's about, where do I commit my time? And I think one of my things is about, is this a waste of my time? Am I spending my time doing something quite valuable? I'm pulling away when I know that isn't really a good use of my time.
Of course. Thank you.
Which is quite brutal. It's quite brutal, but
it is brutal. But that's the reality in it as well. With half an hour's just gone. Oh my God, I can't believe how quickly 30 minutes can go. It's like you're watching something on TV, and if it's really boring, it's taking forever. But when you've had a really fun conversation with someone, the time just shoots by. we've not actually spoken about what you do, Helen,
Mhm,
within your role as an L&D Supremo.
mhm.
So for the audience, give us a quick sort of elevator pitch as to who you are, what you do in your role, and then your contact details.
Oh gosh, I wasn't expecting to do an elevator pitch. I think the main thing I want people to know about me is my business is Escape Training. Obviously, know I'm Helen. I think my focus is on really practical L&D. I focus a lot on leadership and management, and my other
Uh-huh.
thing is diversity and inclusion, because I think the
Sure.
two things actually go hand in hand. If you want something practical and from a D&I point of view, I'm not going to tell you what diversity means, what inclusion means. I'm going to tell you how to make it work in practice, because I think
Excellent.
that's what's important. You can find me on LinkedIn, but I will warn you that there are loads of Helen Baileys. So have a look for that picture. Helen Bailey is very common, and very common, particularly in Stoke. Can I say Bailey is a very common surname in Stoke?
Oh, really?
But it is, yeah. I don't, yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't
That's
know. I don't
fantastic.
know what
So
I
much.
don't know what that is. So you need to look for the right picture. You need somebody on a kind of like quirky angle like that. Um,
Excellent. I'll make sure that everyone can actually see your information in the
Brilliant.
description on the website. For those that are listening on the podcast on Apple, Amazon, etc., I'll make sure that your details are actually in the description there as well.
Fab.
However, as for today's Becoming the Leader in You podcast, I just want to thank everyone for watching and listening. Please, as ever, please do not forget to like, subscribe, share, make some comments. Don't miss any of these really good episodes. From me, it's keep growing, keep leading, but most importantly, become the leader in you. I've been Jay Acharya. My guest today has been Helen Bailey, the Supremo from Stoke.
Oh God. I love that. Yeah, I'm going to make a mug. I have to show you to just do my mug saying Helen does amazing L&D. But I'm going to make another one now that says the Supremo from Stoke on it. Fantastic.
Excellent. Do that. Thank you so much, Helen.
My pleasure. Thank you.